tying the lake in with downtown more. We seem to have these series of concrete infrastructure that act as barrier after barrier after barrier between them. The Rockery sort of has its back to the lake. The World War II Memorial is a wall, literally, that separates the downtown. And none of the, it just seems that, like, what can the town do to capitalize on pulling these elements together? You know, the fountain at the Rockery, right, is a real pedestrian draw, but there are no crosswalks to it, and there's not a really good sidewalk, and there's a big blind corner, and it's almost like, look at this thing, but don't come near it. And the pathway, when you walk to the World War II Memorial, you have to go around it, and if we do have an event like the farmers market, which to me seems like the perfect thing to bring people downtown right near the lake, instead we put it on the far side of the lake so that you can go to the farmers market without ever having to come near downtown. But these are all things that the town isn't dependent on, completely dependent on other business owners or rallying groups. Like, it just seems that there's so much public space there that we could do. What can we do to supersede these barriers?
Want me to handle that one? Anybody else want to take it? I'm with you on the Rockery. I think that fountain should be featured. That's Steve Mail, personally speaking, going out on a limb. There's a lot of people that really like that Rockery, so that is something that actually I've had discussions with other people in this room about that. The Veterans Memorial Park is named that, the Veterans Memorial Park. And it has been maintained, which is the Upper Common. Other people call it, has been maintained as the Upper Common for a long time. The farmers market has been talked about going there. I'll tell you that the farmers market hasn't made a really good push. They do like where they are as well. But that is something that is worth talking about. I do like the idea, certainly, of getting more out of the walks around the lake. I frankly like the, we've talked about them having walking through the downtown as part of the permit process, so they see the businesses and what have you. Create some traffic problems. I do like the idea of getting some money out of them for beautification to the downtown on the walks. A lot of people say, well, they're charities. A lot of them are very, very big charities that pay people a lot of money at the top of that charity list, so they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year running the charity, so it doesn't bother me charging them a little bit more. We charge them now that we use for the common upkeep and as well. So I think those are things we need to keep in mind. We've talked about a Wakefield app kind of thing on your phone, thinking of the younger people as you go around the lake that would shoot up to talk about things. We've talked about low-tech things like kiosks. Selectman Dinoco, Selectman May have been talking about that. I was in Maine and I talked to our chamber director, that low-tech guide. They had a restaurant guide of all the restaurants, and you're in one, you can't find, it's a 2-hour wait. Here, look at the guide, go down the street. And that's something that we actually, the chamber is working on those things. So, Sarah, I get what you're saying. There's a lot of things we can do. Maybe one of it is to get easy crosswalks to at least to that fountain so people can see it. So that's something that we can certainly talk about. So thank you. Anybody want to weigh in?
Just following up on that, is there ever any discussion about the Rockery and why it's such a big wall between the downtown?
Why don't we give you, why don't you repeat that, Pat, if you don't mind, just so.
You know, it's interesting.
Wait for the microphone, please.
Yeah.
Pat Bruno, 2 Mackenzie Lane. It's interesting because the Rockery has come up in many discussions over the years. And Peg, it's great to see you back here after a year, and Amanda, hello again. But question is, why is the Rockery there in the first place? Obviously, it's well intended in the original Wakefield Square. However, there's so much competition to bring people down into the town or up from the lake, and it's impossible for anybody to get a view of the downtown with the Rockery. And you know, you hit it right on the head. You have walls between the downtown and the lake. Downtown is the one piece that makes us different from every community around us, from Reading, from Linfield, from Melrose, which makes our community much better than any other community in this vicinity. So if you were out there, photographers, taking a day to go and perhaps do all 4 communities at the same time, you would spend half the day in Wakefield rather than going to Reading, Linfield, or Melrose. So what is it that keeps us from trying to alleviate the height of the rockery in 2016? Could someone answer that question?
Well, let me speak to the other question first, and then I'll let one of you guys speak about the rockery if you have any thoughts on that. So the question about sort of connecting the lake to the downtown and some of the barriers. So that's something that's really interesting in terms of the arts and culture piece that I'm talking about is, you know, if you do have a large infrastructure barrier, is there a creative way to create a connection or to invite some public art or some kind of installations, even signage, some of the stuff that Peg was talking about. You know, you're never gonna have the perfect setup with every building, you know, perfectly beautiful and to the standard of urban design. Having a huge wall, yes, can definitely be a barrier, but if you think a little creatively, you know, is there a sort of like a low-cost way to go to the community, you know, pull on your existing assets and create that connection that way? So that's just a really interesting sort of different way of thinking about it. Is there a way to reframe the barrier as an opportunity? And in some cases, there may be, so. Okay.
We did our preservation plan a few years back. The planner that was involved in doing the plan suggested that the rockery was a special place and that we needed to look at creating more special places like the rockery in the town. If you think about what has happened around the rockery, we have Zuzu's, we have the Brightview, that certainly was a character of the downtown created by the rockery that probably drew the marketing people from Brightview to want that site and want to locate in the downtown. It's a very iconic feature of the town. I would think that in our master plan we did in 2003, we suggested that we should have something like that at the junction as an entrance to the town, coming in and then think about Main Street along the Galvin Middle School area is a tree-lined area. We have the beginning of the rail trail plan for that. That area could be landscaped so that it becomes something like the rockery, and it's a very big draw as an open space. The open spaces are what bring people and what bring development to your communities. If you were to do a master plan for a new town, the first thing you would want to try to think about is where are people going to gather? Where are the nice open spaces? What are people going to look at? And so I would venture to say that Artichokes is a very nice experience because the rockery is there. Taking the wall down is not going to make the downtown more visible because there is so much traffic going through the town. It's a very tough area for pedestrians to walk across that area. And I'm a pedestrian in that area a great deal. So I don't know that we gain a lot by taking that down. I don't know that we have terrific barriers. And I will comment also about people that walk around the lake. They're dedicated to walking around the lake. They do it in the winter. They're not doing it because they're having fun most of the time. They're doing it for health reasons. They are not pizza eaters. They are not people that are going to go buy an ice cream cone directly. They're more interested in walking the lake. You know, they could be informed over what's the downtown, but that may not be that mission that day that they're walking the lake. So I think that punishing the rockery because you want to have a storefront downtown that is visible is, I think, a wrong mission. So,
Steve, we have another question.
but that's my point of view. Other people have different.
Steve, we have another question.
Scale it down.
Steve, we have another question up here too.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. I love the Rockery. It's one of the marquee things in town. There are a fistful of marquee locations in town. This question is going to involve town engineer and something you and I talked about today, Paul. Traffic calming and access to that. The key thing to do downtown to involve the Rockery is to expand the upper common, eliminate that cut through between the two sections of Main, and make that Rockery part of the Upper Common. With the extra space, it's way easier to bring the farmer's market up. That's the way to incorporate the Upper Common into downtown. What do you got? And I know the traffic piece is monumental to take a run at, but I think that's the biggest thing to downtown.
I think right down in front, Peter, this way.
So with the talk of access and all this, has there been any consideration given to how much money we want to put into the infrastructure? So say streetscapes, it sounds like we're probably beyond just streetscapes, that there may be actual real infrastructure changes to try and promote some of this. Has there been any thoughts about how much of a dollar value that we're willing to put into that? Because it does sound like if some money is invested, it's gonna, and I don't think that's a huge amount of money, that you're able to connect the common to, you know, say that entrance to downtown.
Well, let's say, from my perspective, I'm very happy to have Amanda and Peg here too, and Amanda's going to be doing a real, study on this, and I like our idea of maybe reusing that rockery, and that's probably something that can be married through everybody to look that out, and we can look at Chris's idea too. And when we have a plan, when we're looking at it, we can figure out, the cost and how we're going to do that. So yes, absolutely. It's like anything else, we have to have a plan, and then figure out the cost.
Steve, one more over here.
This lady had her hand up.
Hi, two comments. One is about the rockery. I want to give a shout out to the WCNA, which maintains that. They maintain the fountain part of it. They maintain the landscaping around that. It is a war memorial. There is a plaque there for Spanish-American War, and they are right now designing, getting a replacement plaque, which is a huge undertaking, working with companies in New York City and such, finding the right company that can make the appropriate historic looking plaque for that. But secondly, I spent a long day, a 12-hour day down in Hartford about 2 weeks ago on a Saturday. And it was at an indoor event on a lovely Saturday afternoon. I was delayed to have a half-hour break in the middle of the day, and I went out for a walk, because I'm one of those kind of people who walk break hard and walk late for health. So I went out for a short walk, and I found a sign that labeled "The Long Walk" on the Trinity College campus. And I thought, well, let's see where the long walk takes me. Had it not been for that sign, I wouldn't have checked out that part of campus. I would have walked the boundary of the campus, the outside sidewalks of it, and I would have missed great views of that campus. I think the same thing could be true in Wakefield. If you had a sign down by the lake that indicated the long walk or whatever that went into Wakefield, people might be enticed to see what this does. I also was taken by the signs for, was it Newburyport, that indicated the shopping downtown and stuff. And I think that would also be a great benefit to Wakefield to have, because I always use those signs when I'm at Settlers Green up in North Conway. I'm consulting those signs of where do I want to go, want to make sure I'm not missing something. I think that would be terrific.
I was just going to add to that. A couple of things that downtowns have been doing along that line is creating historic walking tours, which, instead of the long walk, it's the historic walking tour of downtown Wakefield, where there could be information. You've got a lot of historic sites here. So it could take people on a tour of those kind of things. And I think that the other thing that is kind of interesting to come off of what Paul had said about the walkers around the lake, we're starting to see some of the commercial districts having urban walks and urban trails, and creating a trail for people that want to do exercise walk, but taking them through a commercial district, and it's just another route. So I think all those kind of things, anything that you can think of that leads them through, I think it's a great idea.
I'd just like to shout out that we do have a walking tour on the website under the visitors section. So if you click on the visitors section, the Historical Society has a walking tour, and there's also a restaurant guide.
Hi. So my name is Tal. I'm a resident here for about a year now. 31 years old, and I'm coming from living in Somerville near Davis Square. So obviously didn't expect the same sort of livelihood as Davis Square, but there's a beautiful lake that drew us to Wakefield here. And one thing I wanted to call out is it seems like when you walk downtown, half of it is quite beautiful and charming, and then there's kind of a line where the other half isn't quite as charming, and there's actually a lot of vacancies. And so I guess one question is with the cityscape effort, what can we do to, first of all, fill in those vacancies, but then also improve some of those facades to kind of tie in the entire charming theme that's closer to the lake to the other half of downtown?
I'll talk about the vacancies. I have a couple of landlords I'm going to lock in that escape room until they actually agree to work with someone who's going to, I know I'm being funny, but that is true. We work very hard with the landlords, and there are a couple of them that are really tough to get a move on, and we can have that. And you can kind of visualize exactly where they are as you do your walk downtown. I think that we've done some, and part of what we're doing here is what we're going to hope is going to fill those vacancies as well, but we've done some zoning changes to allow residential above retail in a circle around the train. Chamber of Commerce has done a lot of work. The Merchants Group trying to pull all this together. It is not easy work, and I can't tell you the number of new businesses that have come in and lamented that they'd like to do something, they'd like to spend their money to fix some of these storefronts up and have not been able to cut a deal. And we've tried to do it, we're just going to keep on trying. But I get it. What your second question was?
Yeah, so like using money from Cityscape to improve the general facade.
Okay, facade program. Do you want to talk about that maybe? Someone from Main Streets want to at least talk about what we're working on? Mr. Donaco, maybe?
There is something currently being worked on and tried to come up with a proper program through the Main Street organization. There's not enough information really to pass around to the general public because the details still need to be worked out. But facades is an important issue within the town, and so is the signage. The ease on which a business obtains a sign is a very hard struggle right now for a lot of them. So that becomes an issue, an inherent issue over the course of time. But we are, the Main Streets is in collaboration right now with the chamber over the sign bylaw, which we have funds for, so they can come into a program and receive a grant. So that's already in place right now for the existing merchants or even new merchants that come into the town. So we are working on trying to make improvements to the store frontage little at a time, but it takes the proper action before it can be initiated.
So I was just gonna, is this on? Okay. Just to quickly speak to that, so I also used to live around Somerville, so I know the Davis Square vibe, very cool space. I feel like vacancies are, they can be due to so many different reasons. Sometimes it is a property owner that you need to work with. They might be facing a particular issue that you don't really know anything about, and learning more about what those issues are and trying to provide the education and resources they need can often be a key first step. A lot of what we're going to be doing through this project is community engagement oriented, so trying to bring in as many property owners as possible and try to understand what some of those challenges are. And then on the fun and sort of creative side, a lot of communities have been doing really cool sort of pop-ups to kind of test the market in some of these vacant spaces. So my colleague Christine Medora is here. She actually used to live in Peabody, where they actually just put in like a pop-up coffee shop in one of their vacant spots. And it worked out so well, and people were so excited about it that it actually became a permanent coffee shop. So it was just sort of a fun way to kind of test the market, see if people are interested, and then, maybe it can turn into a permanent space. So there are sort of creative ways to go about this as well, and I think that some of that might be an interesting fit for some of the vacancies.
Here on the
name is Rada, and I own a Rada Boutique downtown Wakefield. I own a business there for 12 years in our town, but in that particular location for 9 years. Sometimes beautifying your front could just mean coat of paint, and it could be done very inexpensively, which I have done a couple of times. We all agree that beautifying our downtown and just like the light bulb lit when you showed that picture of the 2 restaurants, how inviting, how we can create an ambiance that is more walkable and approachable to our downtown. And over the years that I live in town, there was a lot of talk about the master plan of this and master plan of that and wanting to do this and that. What we all agree, would it be more beneficial to have a master plan that works, that aesthetic downtown to continue all the way down? Perhaps lowering the street lamps are extremely high, make it more cozy, that you can hang the flower basket on, putting benches, fixing finally sidewalks. It's my pet peeve, as some of you know. Also the repaving the street. We have to decide as a community what's important and what do we really want. Do we want to create all these things in a sort of some of the maybe shabby chic kind of a look of a town? By creating an ambience, it's more people would be more likely to stroll, more likely to think of us as a social gathering, social place. Right now, I'm fortunate to own a business in 2 different towns. One is very walkable and approachable. And when do we actually decide to make that as a priority? Obviously, the vibrancy of this town, it's all of these other components are benefiting and becoming as a one unit. When do we actually, when you mentioned something master plan 2003 and my head spins, what year is now? 2016, almost over. So we just have to start acting on some of those master plans and some of those studies and allocating some of that money that we already have in town that we can use and start small. Little signs, street signs at the lake pointing at the streets, bump outs, it's dangerous. I've witnessed many times people get hit on our street. So that we could attract more businesses to come to downtown. Even after 9 years being downtown, I still have local residents that have no idea that I'm there. And I had spent exuberant amount of money on marketing or social media and so on. So because they don't think about downtown as somewhere where they just want to just throw in. So Mr. Mayor, we budget-wise and as a town, we're a pretty healthy town. Recently, we lowered the taxes, that was great. We are actually a financially stable town, and we actually even built Galvin School. I mean, that's not many towns around us can actually have that amazing, healthy financial situation. So when do we just decide to use some of the money from, we have a surplus or a cash reserve over $6 million there. Do we want to allocate some of that money immediately to just spend it maybe just to make a quickly visible difference downtown so that we don't have to wait another 10 years, 5 years for that thing to fall into place?
Well, I think that's the same kind of question that Chris Fowley asked, is how do we fund what we're doing? Now, if you're talking about some small things here and there, like you talk about signage or a couple things like that, that can certainly be done. Certainly, we could look at some of those things in Springtown meeting, but as you know, everything gets voted on at town meeting. And so the budget is put forward, and during the budget process, I'll be looking forward to the findings of this group here, seeing what they're suggesting and what could be put forward. Things like benches and things like that. But again, it's up to the community to vote on. So you even hear tonight, some people like, and I think you talk about the rockery, I think I'll speak for Mr. Bruno, and if I'm wrong, I think what he means is the rocks at the end that are high and blocking. I don't think you meant the statue or the flowers or the fountain, correct? Yeah, he said thumbs up, neither did I. But I get what you're saying, and we do the best in the budget that we can, and we'll keep going. We also try to coordinate with gas and electric, and a lot of times, we can't do complete improvements until that is insulated and done. So we'll check on that too. We're not going to do a new road and then rip it up because electric or gas had to be redone. So
I just feel that owning a business that long, it's just the waiting period is it's quite long, and some of these businesses come and go, and you just want to have that sense that people would want to come down and experience. We're a great restaurant, a great few shops. We actually have a great town. We just are not having our residents and get them excited about our town. We need to be so positive and wanting to almost educate our citizen of our Wakefield to how important it is. Not everybody has the same experience that most of us here in this group. Do we create a marketing campaign where we somehow remind in a gentle way, in a way that importance for our residents to realize to support the downtown activities and businesses? Maybe something like that could be looked at as a sort of an educating part of why is it important, or what would benefit them, how they would benefit the regular resident that avoided downtown for whatever reason. When one day they're selling their home will be more worth because there's an exciting downtown that new buyers are going to buy their home, or a great school system. So maybe something along the effort of a marketing, a strategy to excite residents and everybody to truly come down. And even to say hello, it just become a social gathering.
Hi, my name is Sandra Clary. I live up on the east side of the lake. I too lived in Somerville, I've lived in Watertown, so I've kind of lived in those more urban areas as well. I'm a transit rider. I also drive. I like to walk, and I also like to bike. So I will take my kids on their bikes and walk to downtown Wakefield to go to events or just to pop into farmland for a loaf of bread. I just want to re-echo some of the comments that have already been made in terms of improving the pedestrian and bicycle connections between the lake and the downtown, which can be achieved through physical improvements, through wayfinding, like you've already pointed to. A traffic study is probably a good idea to improve the connectivity between the Upper Common and the other memorial. In terms of, and I also see Radha's point as well, as a driver coming through downtown and trying to bring my kids across the street in downtown. The crossings are too long on Main Street. They need to be narrowed down. As a driver from the angled parking on Main Street, it's really dangerous. There's no visibility whatsoever. That needs to be taken care of. I think there's a lot of good restaurants downtown that could do with some outdoor seating. Zuzu seems to be pretty popular with their patio. I'm sure a lot of the other businesses in downtown could do with some sidewalk seating if the sidewalks were wide enough. You talked about some pop-up events. There are the major events like the Wakefield Italia, the Halloween and others. There's some smaller events that we could look at, like Parking Day. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that, but if you can take out a couple of parking spaces for a day or a couple of days, put out some seating, patio areas, restaurants could use them just for those days to see, would they be used? They're called parklets also. And then finally, I just wanted to make a note on the funding side. MassDOT has currently, Massachusetts Department of Transportation currently has $12.5 million of funding available for complete streets programs for construction projects. There was an announcement today, Beverly got $400,000 to improve their downtown.